and welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm Xander Gibb, and on today's show, along with my co-host, Egar, I will be looking at the week's newsiest items and taking your calls on euthanasia. More to come in a mere moment. So you can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the page. If you keep scrolling down, you can chat with us there. If you can't get in, it's because you're not a member, but you can join very simply with either Facebook or Twitter. Now, you can call us with your comments all throughout the show, not just for the phone in. You can call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. You can also tweet us. You can tweet me. My Twitter handle is @XanderGibb. XanderGibb, capital X, capital G. Don't forget that @ symbol at the beginning. And Tyhe's Twitter handle is @TyhePaulEgar. TYHEPAULEGAR, capital T, capital P, capital E. And again, don't forget that @ symbol. Tweet me or Tyhe if you're too shy, and we will make our points for you. Oh, yes, we will. So one of the things I really value about living in a civilized country like the United States of America is my freedom of speech. Now, as a journalist, it's imperative to me in order to truly have my say. Now, for all of us who even want to have an opinion, we can really thank the First Amendment for that. Now, there are so many people in the world whose views I vehemently disagree with, but would honestly and truthfully fight to the death for their right to their opinion. So you can imagine how furious I am to hear about the killing of the staffers at Charlie Hebdo magazine in Paris in an attack led by Al-Qaeda. Now, the personnel who killed the people there this week, apparently the attack was in response to cartoons drawn that were disrespectful to the Prophet Muhammad. I mean, seriously, if I shot everyone that was offensive about Jesus or God or my religious beliefs, there would be a few less people walking this earth, believe me. Now, the ideology that anyone has the right to take the life of another for exercising their freedom of speech is astounding to me. Now, we cannot simply lie down and do nothing about this, as it's an affront to everything that is good and decent. For authorities to refuse to call this exactly what it is, terrorism, is most concerning. Now, if we belittle these acts, then people have died in vain, and so did our fellow New Yorkers slain on 9/11. We cannot allow our civil liberties to be eroded and taken away with the threat of death for simply exercising free speech. Now, my thoughts and prayers are with my French brothers and sisters, and I pray that you will stand strong against those that oppress you. Now, it's now time for true Muslims to stand up and denounce these heinous acts and reclaim their faith. Je suis Charlie, vive la différence, vive la freedom. That was Xander's soapbox for this week. If you'd like to come and get on your soapbox about any subject, you can email me at xander@xandergibb.com. That's xander@xandergibb.com. Oh, yes, indeed. So my guest co-host today is the one, the only, the fabulous, welcome with me, Mr. Egar. Hey, Tyhe, how you doing?
Hello, I'm fine, fabulous. I'm surrounded by technology and driving myself nuts, but I'm fabulous. How are you?
I know the feeling. I'm getting there. It's a bit cold here in New York today, and it's been bloody cold this week. I even had to drive with gloves on, even with the heating on the other day, and so, it's really cold here. We've had snow, but apart from that, I'm doing absolutely fabulously. Talking of absolutely fabulous, did you hear they're doing a movie from the TV show?
Finally, apparently. I think it's only because Joanna Lumley over the past few years has worn Jennifer Saunders down because she kept saying, yes, she's going to do it, because I don't think she originally had any plans to do it, but now she's finally conceded and said, yes, we're going to do the movie. So thank you, Joanna.
Yes, definitely, and I think if the Sex and the City girls can do it and do 2 movies, I definitely think we can go for at least one from the Absolutely Fabulous team because they're getting on now, aren't they? And Safi's got to be like 40 something now.
Well, absolutely. I think Joanna Lumley's nearly 70.
Right.
She's still looking fantastic, but yeah, they're like us. Oh, sorry, like me. Of course, you're still 39, obviously. But
I'm 35. Thank you very much. I'm actually 36. I had a birthday last week.
Yeah, the royal birthday. But
yeah.
You know, we're all getting on. You know, they're not as young as they used to be, but they're still, but actually both looking fantastic. I have to say, Jennifer Saunders I've always thought was a beautiful woman as well. But yes, they're not getting any fresher. So they need to get it done while they're still upright.
I think Joanna Lumley would be fabulous at any age. That's not to say that I don't think Jennifer Saunders is. And she fought cancer, didn't she? She's been cancer free for a while now. Yeah. So good on her. And she's on Twitter apparently, and she's called Fairy Frump. So go and follow Jennifer Saunders and tell her that Xander sent you. So one of the things that really jumped out of me even in the news this week, Tyhe, was that a teen with Hodgkin's lymphoma who's refused chemotherapy is stirring up once again the national debate about euthanasia and an intense legal battle. Now, the 17-year-old girl who's only known as Cassandra C. is saying no to chemotherapy treatment on the grounds that it could make her even sicker than she is at the moment. Now, the state government of Connecticut, which is just a couple of states away from where we are in New York, is still fighting tooth and nail for the right to force the young cancer patient to undergo treatment for her own health. Now, in a controversy that's arisen to some of the highest legal levels, has this teen been standing up to state law officials this last week, and apparently they won. Now, one would think the support of her mother behind her invoking a right to disallow any further treatment at 17 years old, nearly 18, for her cancer would be enough, but still the battle is ongoing. Now, thousands and thousands of people have sounded off with their input into this contentious case. And the general feeling is she knows the long-term effects of having chemo, what it does to your organs and what it does to your body. And she may not be able to have children after this because it affects everything in your body. It not only kills cancer, it kills everything in your body. And her mother, Jackie Fortin, stated in a video message released to local press, it's a question of fundamental constitutional rights, the right to have a say over what happens to your body, and the right to say to the government, you can't control what happens to my body. Now, what's your immediate reaction to this, and what's your ideology about euthanasia, Tyhe?
Well, I mean, my first reaction to that is horror. I mean, if this young woman is saying, I do not want chemotherapy, then that's where that conversation should end. I mean, unless we were saying that she was, if she had learning disabilities or she was mentally ill and it was going to be detrimental to her life expectancy or wellness, then that would be a different issue. If she didn't understand what she was being told, do you know what I mean? Then that would be a different issue. But if she is totally, if she understands what's being told, said to her, and she's saying, I am choosing to opt out of that treatment, and these are the reasons why, and she's absolutely right, it can be devastating to the system, then that's where that conversation should end. In no way on this planet should anybody be able to force her or anyone else to have medical treatment against their will. Really, that sends me cold just thinking about it. That's terrifying. It's rape, isn't it? Basically, it's medical rape.
You're absolutely right. Because what are they going to do?
Terrifying.
Strap her down to a chair and enforce the chemotherapy. I mean, she's clearly stated that she doesn't want this. Now I would be having a different tact on this if she was 9 or 10. But anything like 14, 15 upwards, you know your own mind, and I think a lot of 10 and 12-year-olds probably know their own mind. But I don't think they should be enforcing chemotherapy on someone that's 17 years old.
No, but as far so that's my take on that individual. Obviously, we only know what we're being told in the press. But my personal take on euthanasia, I'm actively involved with a campaign over here called Dignity in Dying, and actually in the next short while there's a huge debate in the House of Commons here talking about that. I'm a big supporter of the Dignity in Dying campaign, and think that if people again are making a conscious and knowledgeable choice and willing choice to die with dignity, because they are at the end of a cycle. They know that their life expectancy is 0, and they wish to die without pain, and they want to say goodbye to their family with dignity, and they don't want to suffer anymore. Then they should have that choice. And I think that's perfectly acceptable, and it's certainly what I would choose to do myself. So as far as euthanasia, and yes, and of course it needs to be governed extremely carefully. There are lots and lots of things we need to consider, and the safety of the people who are making those options. But I certainly myself would want to have that option.
Well, there was a woman here last year, and I forget her name, and she had one of the most severest forms of cancer, and she chose to stop having the chemotherapy, and she knew that ultimately it was going to kill her, but she wanted to die with dignity. And there were people here that said that she was selfish, and for me, I almost have to gasp sometimes that people have the audacity to offer and proffer these opinions about people's lives when they don't even affect them. I mean, it must be the hardest decision in the world to make, to refuse treatment and to say, what will be will be. So for people to be judging that out there is astounding, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, the idea that people just think en masse they have a right to an opinion on somebody else's life it really scares me. It really freaks me out. That somebody's neighbour can turn around and say, "Oh no, I think you've made the wrong choice. I think I have a right to force my will onto you." That's really scary.
Exactly.
I don't even know where that takes us. I mean, how far back does that take us? That's Stone Age shit. I mean, it's I don't know. It's terrifying that suddenly my neighbours. I mean, excuse me. When did you have the right to tell me how to live my life? It's not a moral judgment. It's not affecting you. It's not affecting your family. It's not affecting society. I am hurting nobody else. What I am saying is I am making a choice not to harm myself in any way, and I am choosing to take the chance that in the future I may be better. I may be more well than I am right now, and that's the decision I'm making, and it's a chance I'm willing to take about myself. This decision will harm you and society in no way whatsoever, and yet you think you have a right to govern my decision. No, that scares me.
I mean, I think the other big concern with regards to this topic is that lots of people have actually been imprisoned for assisting people to end their own lives, and so now there are even websites that kind of help, that advise you about what to do and how to do it and what the easiest ways to do it are. And apparently even these websites say you have to go buy these things yourself. Don't involve anybody else. By all means tell someone, but don't involve anybody else, because it could mean a prison term for anybody
because
that
you're
helps
involving
you.
them,
Yeah, they say evaded and abetted a suicide.
Yeah, There are families now as well, also though, that save up and go on open quotes holiday, close quotes, to Switzerland because it's legal there. People can choose. People can elect to end their lives compassionately and with dignity.
But shouldn't it be legal everywhere? When I was a kid, we had a dog and it had cancer, and the vet said, "There's nothing more we can do for this dog," and the kindest thing would be to euthanize it, to have it put to sleep.
Well,
and
yeah,
although that was devastating, because obviously your pets are kind of like part of your family, we did that because we loved the animal. Why would you show more? Why would you show more consideration to an animal than you would to a person? I mean, no disrespect. I mean, I would probably show more consideration to an animal, I have to say, but it just seems crazy that in 2015 we can't have a choice about our lives, because if someone wants to end their lives, then why shouldn't they be allowed to do so?
But we've always done that with animals. We would never consider sitting in a room and watching a family pet writhing in agony in the middle of the living room floor. We would all be sobbing and running to the vet, pleading with the vet to put that animal out of its misery. And yet we will sit around a hospital bed and watch a relative scream in pain because the morphine is no longer, there's just not enough morphine in the building to stop their pain.
Right.
And yet we call that humane. And we're willing to do that and tell each other how terrible it is to watch that relative suffer. And we call that medicine, and we call that humane. We call that humanity. We would never, ever watch a family pet suffer that way. Or a horse, you know what I mean? We would just never consider it. We would call that cruel beyond measure. And yet we happily, in fact, we make that legal. It's a legal requirement to force a human being to go through that. And if you try and stop that, as you say, you go to prison. So, where is the logic in that?
I think that this girl and her parents have to keep fighting this, because, like I said, what they're going to have to do literally is tie her down and administer the chemo. And let's face it, I mean, I've been there with people that have been having chemo, and you have to be relaxed. You have to stay in one position because it's going in intravenously, isn't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
How can that be done forcibly? I mean, I know how to give an injection, and I know that if you don't get it quite right, you could cause damage. So if you're forcibly injecting chemotherapy into someone, I just wonder at the logic of that, because how effective is that going to be if they're going to struggle for that? I think that they should continue. No.
They're not going to, though, are they? They're going to have to sedate her. So what we're talking about is they are going to legally make her force her into unconsciousness, to then force her to have treatment. So that's rape. That's it's biological rape. It is, and that's terrifying. To say that in America or the UK, in a first world, again, we're back to that first world country thing, isn't it? We're just slipping away from reality more and more every day. Because I know one of the next stories we're going to go into is the same. We're just slipping away from this. But that's what they would have to do to make that therapy work, to make it viable. They're going to have to make her unconscious or drug her into pliability, and then force her to have a treatment she doesn't want.
I think the biggest concern about this is that it's very depictive of what point we are at in history, that the state feels like they have more rights over someone's body than the person does. And absolutely. I'm all for smaller government, because the thing is that most people sit around and say, what are the government going to do? What are the councils going to do? Why not get out there and do something yourself? It's time for this world to be shaken up, because we've become very dumbed down. Well, some of us, obviously, not you and I, because we do get our point across. But thank God we live in countries that allows that freedom of speech. But I think people have become very sedate, don't you?
Well, absolutely. People sit in their living rooms and wait to be rescued, and, couch TV messiahs, they're waiting for somebody else to rescue them. And the point is, we are our own saviors, we are our own creators, and we need to get off our backsides and realize that and stop waiting for somebody else to knock on the front door and say, hi, I'm here to rescue you, because nobody's going to do that. And that's how we ended up in this mess in the first place, because we keep waiting for somebody else to come and rescue us, somebody else to come and do the work. And that clearly doesn't work, because look, this is what happens when you wait for somebody else to come and do your job for you. We are responsible for our own creation, and this is what happens when you sit back and let somebody else do it. So stop being a universal donkey and get off your backside and do something about it, because otherwise you'll find that somebody else is quite happy to tell you what's going to happen to you, and it's a terrifying place to be.
It is, and I think that the more and more powers we give to the local authority, our freedoms become more diminished, because I've considered myself to be a libertarian for the past couple of years, and one of the ideologies of libertarianism is smaller government. And it's even more concerning here because if you live in the United Kingdom, the law of the land is the law of the land. Now there are local laws and there are federal laws, so you could go across the bridge to New Jersey and be subject to a whole different set of laws than you would be in New York. And having lived a lot of my life in England, I find that ideology a little odd. But you could go from London and drive up to Manchester or Liverpool, and there'd be a whole different set of laws. But that's what this ideology is here, that they have federal laws and state laws, and you would think that federal laws would trump state laws, but they don't, because if a state has their own law, medical marijuana is legal in, I think it's 50 states now. But some states could have chosen not to do that. It's increased slowly. But if states had refused to do that, if they'd voted and decided that they were some hick state that couldn't see the benefits of medical marijuana usage, and using it recreationally is a different argument, but they could have said, no, we're not going to do this and we will never do this. It's the same with the gay marriage debate. So I wonder if any states would ever make it legal to make euthanasia legal. That would be a very interesting and forward-thinking state for my money.
I don't think I'd be very surprised. Well, it would take a very brave state to do it, because they would be changing the world. They'd be changing the face of the world. So it would either take somebody very brave or somebody really arrogant. Do you know what I mean? So it would depend, and one would be scary and one would be fantastic. So it would depend again on the reasons why. But I would love it.
Exactly.
I don't know whether I would. To be honest, I don't know whether I would like it to be America who did it. I don't think I would like it to be Britain either. But when I say that, by the way, before anybody calls in and and goes nuts, I think it would be. I would like it to be. Well, Switzerland have done it.
Right.
Europe, I think, even though Europe is full of crazy people as well, it's a little bit more sedate.
They've done it for over 20 years, though, haven't they? It's not just been like a recent thing.
Yeah, it's not new.
They've done this for a long time. I mean, I have to say, we obviously speak outside of the show, and if you called me and said, Xander, I've got cancer and I want you to help me to end it, I would have a great difficulty with how I would respond. I mean, I'd probably say, right, let's go to Switzerland, because you would never want someone to end up in prison because of helping you, would you? You know what I mean? But no. How could you, like you wouldn't want to see your pet suffer. You wouldn't want to see someone who you loved and cared about to suffer either. So it must be the hardest call in the world to get, for someone to say, hey,
Absolutely.
I need you to help
Absolutely.
me
But mine
end it.
Mine would we do make sure you post these out because I've got mine taken care of. I have my whole plan in place because I would never have my friends, family have to find me. So I have a plan in place for that, which might sound really weird to listeners, but I don't really care. But ours comes from obviously we went through the world of losing so many friends to AIDS when it was called AIDS, and HIV, and then I had my cancer scare and I've been bipolar, as this shit goes through your head as well. So I have my whole plan, and I live in Scotland. I can disappear into the wilderness and wild animals would just eat me. So nobody would find me. So I would just make sure that somebody got the message that I would never be found, so I would never do that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, what if you did get that call? Because my father actually asked me, my father passed 20 years ago, but his biggest fear was dementia. And he had a very frank conversation with me one evening and said to me, son, I don't care. I'm asking you to help me if that happened. And I agreed to, and it started to happen to him. And I did panic and think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Because it started to happen. He started to show that real, genuine signs of dementia. And I knew that was his biggest fear. And I thought, well, I was ready. I was getting myself ready to face prison time because I promised him I wouldn't have let him down. And I know this sounds dreadful, but fortunately for him and me, he had a brain hemorrhage. So he went in his sleep. He went in, he just fell asleep and it happened in his sleep. So he didn't suffer any pain. And the best way surely to go is in your sleep, isn't it?
Exactly. So respectfully, that was a blessing, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, but I have been in that situation, so I know what it feels like to be asked by somebody to do. I mean, obviously, somebody I loved and respected, beyond measure. So I know I would never do that to somebody. But you're right. What happens if you do get that call by somebody you love? I mean, oh God! I mean, where would you be?
I think the other concern as well is not so much for people that live in the UK and Europe, but people that live in the United States who, I know Obamacare is in place, but still a lot of people cannot afford health care, so they don't get an annual health check. So the first time they know something wrong is if they've kind of been forced to go to the doctor, and by that time they could be stage 3 with cancer. I 5 years ago I had a cancer scare, and I didn't have insurance, and I went and had an ultrasound, and thank God it was nothing. It wasn't, it wasn't cancer. But I just think, what do you do if you get into that situation and you've not got adequate health care, and you get there and you find out that you're stage 3? I mean, it's a terrible, terrible thing that the only people that survive these things are those that have money to be checked regularly. I mean, I think healthcare for me, and I've always thought this, and I suppose some people are going to call in and say, "Oh, you're a liberal, Xander," but healthcare and education are rights. They're not. They're not privileges. What?
How dare you be a liberal? That's shocking.
I know. I mean, I'm not typically liberal, and I wouldn't call myself a liberal. That is kind of considered a liberal ideology. But I do definitely think that healthcare and education are rights. I mean, in the past 30 years, I've seen that we've got far less doctors, we've got far less teachers, and all of these things because people just can't afford to pay for their own education, and most people are not lucky enough to get scholarships and things like that. But that to me is kind of pictorial of society too, because my grandmother used to say, my grandmother was from Yorkshire, and she used to say, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and she was just so right, because there was for a lot of people there was never any way out of these situations. I mean, how many kids that you went to school with are now doctors or lawyers or teachers? Respectfully, because none of the kids I went to school with. I mean, I think one of my friends is a teacher that I went to school with, but that's it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't. Well, not that I know. I mean, I don't. I have to say, I'm not exactly in touch with anybody from school apart from a couple of very close friends, but. Not that I know of. I'm not aware of any of them that went through university and went on to rule the world. So
exactly.
yeah, I have no idea.
I think the kind of like the echelon of education that you get does affect what you're able to do in your later life. Like, I have friends that went to private schools and stuff, and all of their colleagues are now doctors, lawyers, surgeons, all these things, and so it is very depictive of excuse me, the way that society is and the way that society revolves, because it is all very circular, right? I really think it is. But I do think, I used to be very pro Obamacare, but I'm totally against it now, because most of the people I know who have signed up for it are paying far more than they were before. So it's a total ripoff. And what was supposed to actually help lower income families has really kind of kicked them right in the balls, basically. So I can't,
really?
Yes, definitely, most definitely. And it's kind of unfortunate because the ideology of it was that basically the government would buy, like an employer in this country buys a block of health care for his employees and gets it at a reduced rate. So the government was going to buy a block of health care for everybody so that we would all get it at this reduced rate. But it wasn't the case. Most people are paying, I don't know what the percentages are, but most people are paying a lot more. Tony, one of the guys who comes and guest co-hosts occasionally, he's paying like $60 more a month than he was before. And where are people supposed to find this money from?
It's just, that's always been scared me about America, is like, if you don't pay, you die. But yeah, I mean, think has Obama been taken over by pod people and nobody's noticed? Because it just seems to me that over the past couple of years, particularly, he's completely lost the plot.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, as someone who was a lifelong Democrat, he was what made me leave the Democratic Party, because he's just none of the things you see, this is the thing. All administrations go into office with a set of promises. And I would rather them not do it than do it badly. Because all the things he said he was going to do, he's done badly. Like Obamacare is just like the worst thing ever. And I never thought I'd hear myself saying that. But also, all of this about what he said he was going to do for immigration. They said they were going to have an amnesty of some kind. And even if people had to pay fines and re-register, et cetera, et cetera. But all he's done is he's signed this thing where people would, that this is not all illegals. This is just illegals that have got children would not be deported. So how is that fair to the people who haven't got children?
Yeah, I just think he seems to have gone berserk, because we're very closely connected to you guys over there, and always have been, which is a great thing. So, I mean, it pops up on the news here, and I sometimes sit listening to the headlines, and then some story will filter through, and, it'll be, and President Obama's done this, and I sit there and think, am I watching the news or am I watching a comedy show? I mean, has this, it's not that funny. Yeah. But, I just think, what is he doing now? What's happening? Has he, at one point I actually thought he'd gone over to the Republicans or something. I thought he's infiltrated something. He's been taken over by aliens. There's something very wrong here.
It's absolutely. It's funny you should say that, because some of his decisions of late have left me scratching my head. My friend and colleague Dr. Gina Loudon, who's she's a political commentator amongst other things, and she's a conservative. She votes Republican, and she's a very good friend of mine. And she wrote an article last year that was questioning his sanity, and she got death threats about it and all of these things, but surely you have to question the sanity of someone that releases terrorists and swaps terrorists for a deserter, whether he's an American citizen or not. To actually release those terrorists And what those terrorists have systematically done is they've gone back and they're plotting against us again. You know, they've gone back and joined ISIS and all of these terrorist organizations.
And there's a huge surprise. Can you? I mean, imagine that, terrorists being released from prison and going back to being terrorists. But
I know, exactly. You'd have thought they'd all gone to work for the Catholic Church, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I mean, the idea that he negotiated with terrorists, full stop, was, I just thought when you told me that, even after we talked about that on the show, for about 3 days afterwards, I mean, my head was a little bit numb. I still couldn't process that, and I discussed that with other colleagues. And even they, you know, we all sat talking to each other, looking at each other, going, "Really?" And you know, it would not compute. And everybody said what you said as well. One of my colleagues instantly, Emma, hello Emma, if you're listening, she does listen in, said to me, "But doesn't that put everybody in America at risk? Doesn't that put Americans?" I said, "Exactly. That's exactly what Xander said. It puts every American at risk because they now become a viable commodity."
But not just Americans. It puts everybody in the world at risk. I mean, look at France. Look at what happened in France. We're going to come on to that in a second. But I think all of these things have contributed to that because they've become strengthened again. And these absolute effing lunatics who want the whole world to be Muslim are kind of like, you know, running around in France and killing people for having the audacity to have freedom of speech. And don't tell me that some of this blame should not go to President Obama's door for releasing those terrorists, you know?
Well, absolutely, yeah, and absolutely. I mean, of course, you're right, it puts everybody at risk. But I mean, specifically, when an American president, when they know an American president has negotiated with terrorists, I think it puts you guys a little bit more at risk than us. Although, having said that, you know, Cameron didn't exactly jump up and say, "No, I disagree," but then why would he? You know, I mean, he's been licking. Anyway, let's not go there. But I have no respect for no respect
licking
for
the sugar off donuts. You were going to say, weren't you?
Yes, I was, Xander. Thank you, I was. But yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it is. I mean, what he did was wrong, and there's no. He'll never be able to justify that to me. And I know, obviously, he offered the world no justification. And I think that's simply because he could not justify it. There's no way he'll ever will be able to.
No.
I think you're right.
Even his own administration were aghast that he'd done it. And I think the most alarming thing about it, you know, if someone shoots your dog and then you give them their gun back, they're going to shoot somebody else's dog, you know?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I know. I mean, yeah, to be surprised that terrorists went back to being terrorists is possibly the most absurd part of it. Or you're right. I mean, it's like what they came out of prison and converted to Catholicism. Not that would be any.
Yeah.
You know, apart from the only good thing about that is a Catholic would never, you know, a Catholic fundamentalist would never strap a bomb to themselves because they, you know, it would be, no, let's talk about it. They would never put themselves in the line of fire.
No.
But,
they might
interfere
with your kids and sell your babies if you had one out of wedlock in the 30s and 40s, but they would never strap a bomb to themselves. No, definitely not. You're absolutely right. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in Paris. A little bit of background. At around 11:30 on the day this happened last week, Stéphane Charbonnier was perched, as was his habit every Wednesday morning, at the offices of Charlie Hebdo, the French satirical newspaper he headed. A dozen or so journalists, including the paper's top cartoonists, had joined him for their regular weekly meeting. They'd published their latest provocative cartoon on Twitter earlier in the day, a sketch of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of the Islamic State terrorist group, wishing his audience a Happy New Year and, above all, good health. Now, Karin Ray, a cartoonist, was entering the building when two men in commando garb, armed with AK-47s, grabbed her and forced her to open the door when they pushed her inside and took refuge as they opened fire, killing Mr. Boswa, a security guard, and spraying the area with so much gunfire that some people thought a scaffold was falling. Racing upstairs, they said, "Where is Charb? Where is Charb?" a widely known nickname for Mr. Charbonnier. They then killed one of the cartoonists. Now, they spoke perfect French and claimed to be from Al-Qaeda. He spoke in a steady voice to Sigolene Vincent with a calm look in his eyes, saying, "You are a woman, but think about what you are doing. It's not right." Then she said, he turned to his partner, who was still shooting, and shouted, "We don't shoot women, we don't shoot women, we don't shoot women." It was not immediately known whether either suspect was ever managed to leave France to join jihadist networks, but both men appeared to have been trained in the use of commando tactics and firearms and were prepared for the killing mission that they were on. Now, of course, they went on to hold the shoppers and staff of a local kosher store as hostages, and there were some very brave people there, like the black Muslim guy that took all the people down to the freezer so that they would be saved. I mean, what do you make of all this lunacy? And it's on your doorstep because it's France. It's 20 minutes through the Channel Tunnel,
yeah.
and this is going on the United Kingdom's doorstep.
Well, we've already had the head of the MI6 here, which is the security agencies here, saying it's inevitable. It's more or less inevitable that it will happen here, which is always comforting when the head of your security forces is saying, brace for impact. But as far as I can make out with all these people, they are. I mean, some of them are clearly mentally vulnerable people when you read about them. But I think most of them just want to hurt other people. It's got nothing to do with religion whatsoever.
Absolutely.
They're not Muslim. They're not religious people in any shape or form. They just simply want to hurt other people. They're violent, evil monsters, and this is what they want to do. And they do it. They hide behind the banner of religion, and they just bring the people down. And what they're doing as well is putting Muslims in danger, putting real Muslims in danger, because there'll always, sadly, as well be idiots who hide behind the banner of freedom, who will now use this as an excuse to hide behind this, to hide their racism behind this, and their hatred behind this, and they will use this as an excuse to come out and now and attack real Muslims. And it's just going to go round and round and round. I do think it's a sign of the death throes of religion, to be honest. I mean, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. No pun intended.
It was predicted in the Bible, wasn't it? That eventually even the government will turn on religion. But I shared this thing yesterday or the day before, this article that was saying, look at all the anti-Semitic stuff and anti-Semitic cartoons that have been going around, but you don't see Jewish people strapping bombs to themselves or going in buildings and killing people for them being disrespectful to the Jewish faith, to Judaism.
No,
they don't kind of go out there and do that. As someone that classifies themselves as a Christian or Jesus, whatever you want to call it, I don't go and shoot someone every time they are disrespectful about Jesus or about God. And to me, this, like you've kind of attested to, I kind of agree. It is majorly kind of just an excuse, and it's to shock people. But what really bothers me is that when the world's governments can't call this terrorism, which is exactly what it is, we don't give it as much credence. But I think it's frightening the way that we're going. And I've never been pro-guns because they frighten the life out of me because I don't know how to use them properly. But I'm seriously thinking in the future of going and getting trained and buying myself a gun just to be safe.
Yeah,
I really do. And did you ever think you'd hear me saying that, Ty?
I didn't know, but also, isn't it though, statistically, correct me if I'm wrong, but statistically, in America?
I didn't get that because you cut out. Can you say that once more?
Oh, sorry. Statistically, though, in America, people usually get killed by their own guns.
Some people do, but I don't think it's a high proportion.
Oh, right, okay. But I don't blame you. I mean, to be honest, if I lived there, I would be going to a firing range. I would be making sure I was very competent with a firearm, and I would be making damn sure that I could defend myself. Because I mean, people though should be going for self-defense classes. I think here, everywhere,
Definitely.
because you just don't know which kind of idiot is going to attack you next, and it's all in the name of something. That's all they tell me. Because everybody can justify something now, you've said this and it offends me, you've said that, and it all. I was watching an interesting debate this morning on the TV actually about humanists. Humanists now want to be able to watch over weddings, right? The way that religions can, so like the way a priest can. I've lost the word I'm looking for. Hold a wedding, humanists want to be able to do that. And the priest, one of the priests, preside, thank you, over. And one of the priests actually, they were saying, no, this is the road to hell. Humanists are the devil's work and blah, blah. There's actually a guy in the audience as well who's a creationist who doesn't believe that, the Big Bang ever happened or whatever. His excuse being, we can't explain where, how the Big Bang happened. Sadly, I wasn't in the audience because I would have loved to explain that to the idiot, but there we go. But what they were saying, but one guy in the audience was actually saying that, was saying, well, we can clearly see why people are afraid, why these religious leaders are afraid, because things are being pulled away from them all the time. But why are they so hesitant to answer these questions and stand up and just say, well, okay, let everybody live their lives? Because what does it matter if somebody wants to have a humanist wedding? And if God is so powerful and all not, and how can we possibly take his throne away? So let people get. But that was the argument was no, you must do what we say because we are the voice of God. So you're always going to get these maniacs flying out and saying something, but we just can't allow this sort of thing to go on. And people need to brace for impact, which is what we're being told here. We're being told by the head of our defence, of our head of our security. We're being told by the people that spy. We're being told by the real James Bonds to brace for impact. It's almost, these were his words, it is almost inevitable that this will happen in the UK. So what does that say to
I
people?
don't doubt it. Look at when I lived in London, a bus went past my house, the number 12 bus went past the road where I lived, and there was a bomb on it. I mean, do you remember that? All those bombings in London, yeah. Were you still there?
Yeah,
I mean, that was just...
People I knew were on that bus, but they fortunately they were okay. Well, so they were okay. They survived it. But that that was a different bus. Sorry, I remember the one you're talking about. But yeah, but absolutely. But this has now got to a point where, but I was saying the other day as well, and which is I know probably very radical, whatever. But I've had enough now. I'm just saying. Wipe them out. Don't be putting them in prison. Yeah. Wipe them out. If they're going around saying, this is in the name of Muhammad, if you want to be with your God, then allow me to be your passport. Here's your 77 virgins. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm happy to let you get there faster. Because you want to see me get there faster. Well,
I was criticized a few years ago for saying that there was this Nigerian Muslim and he was on a plane and he had a bomb in his underwear, and they found him. They found that he had this, and they took him down to the tarmac. And people criticized me for saying that they should have shot him on the tarmac because that's inhumane and all of this. If you want to put innocent people at risk by getting on a plane with a bomb attached to you, wherever it is, then I'm sorry, but you deserve to die. Why should you be given the privilege of living on after that? I saw something the other day on Facebook about that we used to hang people for treason in England. Surely these acts are treasonous, Surely these things are treason. If you act against the country that you live in, that's treason.
Well, I would have thought so, and I don't understand what the problem when you're talking about. Somebody getting on a plane, willing to, and I don't care whether they're willing to die. I mean, clearly, if you're sticking explosives down your underwear, you don't care whether you live or die. But if you're willing to get on a plane and kill all those people, and it's not just those people, it's the lives of their families and loved ones that you're going to destroy as well, then I'm with you. Take them out on the tarmac, yeah, why not? And it also saves us a lot of money, because how much is it going to cost us to keep them alive in a prison cell? And possibly actually plan more in that prison, because they're going to have a network of people, and we know they have a network there, and we know that network floods out into society. No, I'm sorry. But, and also, somebody did say to me, yes, but if you kill one, another will just step up into their place. My argument is, well, let them. Eventually, somebody's going to be bright enough to say, no, hang on, I'm not doing that because they'll kill me.
Exactly. There's not enough of unfortunately, there's not enough of a deterrent, especially with President Obama sending them back. I mean, what next? Do they get a week at Central Parks too?
Well, exactly. Do you know what I mean? Have you been to Waterworld? Do you know what I mean? It's absurd.
Why do you think, Tyhe, that there is this reluctance for the world's governments to actually call this terrorism? Do you think it's that they're actually trying not to scare people? But I think we need to be scared a bit in order to take notice. We need to take notice and stand up. Why do you think that the governments are not calling it terrorism?
Because they're involved in it. Where do they get the weaponry from? We've weaponized them. We've been involved in this. Without it, we have no excuse. Governments, and I don't care how paranoid this sounds, without it, governments have no. How do they justify behaving the way they do? How do they justify the wars that they create? They are involved in this. We are actually responsible because we're all universal donkeys. We all sit on our sofas waiting for somebody else to rescue us. This is what happens when we don't pay attention. And
the only reason, let's face it, the only reason that they knew that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, why they could allege it, is because they'd sold them to them in the 80s. They sold them the components in the 80s.
Well, they sold them the components.
Don't give your enemy a gun because they will shoot you with it.
But if it turns out there weren't weapons of mass destruction
there,
they were
because they disseminated them elsewhere. So where are those? I really honestly think that that they should go back to the 80s and see who sold what to where. Not that they're going to admit it, but surely we need to be tracking those things and where they're at.
Well, but that's the point, though, isn't it? When do you start? What do you consider a war criminal? And then who do we start for? Who do we make responsible for this? Because how many politicians would be then stood in that dock answering those, being answerable for those crimes? And I think that's another reason they don't pursue it that well, do they? Because after 9/11, how many relatives of the so-called terrorists was the president flying out of the country quickly? There were guests in America at the time. So, and that probably was happening in the UK as well, because of that corruption and that money and that flow of money. You've got millions and millions. These people are so wealthy, it's absurd. And all that corruption flowing between them.
What's never kind of sat well with me, and at the risk of sounding like Rosie O'Donnell, which I don't mind, why did the American government attack Iraq and Afghanistan when it was the Saudis that attacked us? They wouldn't attack Saudi Arabia because then they'd have their oil supply cut off.
Well, exactly, but isn't that always been the big argument? And then people say, "Oh no, you're paranoid. That's nonsense." Well, if it's nonsense, why don't we do something about it then? And of course, we never do anything about it, because it's not just you guys with the oil; it's us as well. Obviously, everybody needs the oil, and to cut that. But also, why have we never done anything about that? And it's all, oh God, it's just never ending, and it will continue to be never ending until the oil runs. That will be really interesting when we genuinely turn to alternate energy. That will be really interesting to see what happens, how the power shifts. Well, I'm saying interesting. It might also be very, very terrifying. So.
Well, in this country, if you build a house from scratch, the government gives you subsidies if you have clean power, like solar panels on the roof and wind turbines and things like that. And I think that really is the way forward. That's that they reckon there's enough power with solar panels and on wind power. What do they call the guy from Dallas, Larry Hagman? He owned like an estate, and he had it built in the 80s, all with solar power, with wind power, and all of these things, and he would sell the energy that was surplus.
Yeah, you can do that here. People have done that a long time here as well. They sell it back to the power companies, and they can get grants for it. So you can do that here as well. There seems to be a lot of money.
I mean, it's definitely something I would want to do.
Wind energy.
If I could ever, I mean, even if you don't do a new build, did you know you can buy a blind for your window? Like you put a blind in your window that actually has solar panels on it and has a power strip coming off it, so you can use the electricity from that for things.
Yeah, well, people here get solar panels put on their roofs a lot. There's a lot of that happening in Scotland, but Scotland's a very forward-thinking country anyway. It's a very advanced country medically as well. Actually, it's very ahead of it as England. So it's a very ahead of England in a lot of ways. Actually, just get my little dig in there for Scotland. You Anglo.
What's the opposite to file?
Anglophobe. I think I'm an anglophobe.
Anglophobe. Yes, you anglophobe. Let's
become very Scottish.
I don't blame you though. I really don't. I mean, the more I think about it, if I had the money, I would just buy a house in the middle of nowhere and just do my little radio show each week from there, and kind of like commune with nature, as it were. But listen, we're getting to the last. Well, Glasgow's not very rural, is it, or is it? I suppose Govan is.
I have no idea. I don't live in Govan. But I just love Glasgow. People are fabulous. Well, Scotland's a beautiful country, though. It's I live. Actually, I'm lucky. I live where I live. There's a lot of green around me, but there's a lot of green left here. I mean, they're not. It's not a country full of pollution and grey brick buildings yet. Anyway.
Now you have to go to Edinburgh for grey buildings, don't you?
Well, Edinburgh's still a beautiful city. It's just
apologies to all our listeners in Edinburgh. So we're at the last segment of the show now. Ty, tell us about what story you've brought for us this week.
Oh yes, well, yeah, this is it's a bit of controversy, I suppose. It's a very short one. There's a movie released last year.
We are still talking about the story, are we?
Yes. Well, yeah, not me. A movie last year, really, yes, we'll not mention that, called Pride. It's an award-winning movie. It's a true story of lesbian and gay people helping Welsh families in 1984 miners' strike, which was huge here. It was devastating for families. But for its USA release, the distributor photoshopped out all references to gay and lesbian people from the DVD cover. The blurb now vaguely refers to the film's protagonist as London-based activists. It pretends the generous folks in the films weren't gay and lesbian, as if something to be ashamed of. It's rewriting history in a wrongful way. The distributor CBS Film is under pressure and said to the press they're looking into the matter now. So we're urging CBS Films to change the DVD cover so it honours the pivotal role that lesbian and gay people played in this story. The film's original artwork has a photo of activists on the march, but on the American DVD cover, a sign saying lesbian and gay support the miners has been digitally removed from the photo, and the synopsis just calls the activists London-based instead of lesbian and gay. CBS Films are under pressure for straight washing. There's a flurry of media coverage about the erasure of the crucially gay part of the story. CBS Films were even pushed into releasing a statement saying they're looking into what happened. Now, I don't know what's going on over there, America, because I thought you were getting better, but apparently not.
I thought so too. I mean, when we first talked about this, I was dumbfounded. It's like, why in hell would you why would you take out the words gay and LGBT and.
Well, they've taken it all out. I've just tweeted, by the way, the site. It's Andre and Jeremy all out as usual, big follower, and Xander and I, as said before, we always follow on their tweets and their reports. So I've just tweeted the site. You can go and sign the petition for us Americans, because we want you to do, well, not just Americans, everybody listening, get it sorted out, folks. But I don't know why they've done that, but it is a big story. And in the 80s, the mining communities here, I think like the farming communities were devastated in America by the government. So equate it to that, American listeners. That's why I'm equating it to. The mining communities here were devastated by the government. Families were, were devastated by it. So it really was a big, important part of history here. And the lesbian and gay community there genuinely were pivotal. They got all out and they really supported them. And so to be excluded from the publicity and the story, as far as advertising, it's a big deal. It's not, it's a biggie. So get out there, go all out. Go on.
It's kind of like inviting your gay cousin and his partner to dinner and saying this is his roommate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's so unfair, and it kind of put me in mind of those British rowing teams that made that calendar as a thank you for all the support they'd had from the LGBT. I can't get used to saying this Q. I'm sorry, I really can't. The LGBTQ ABCDEFG community. It kind of put me in mind of that because the gay community has been, are really supportive of anyone that supports them, aren't they? They kind of like give back, the level of support tenfold. I know when I lived in England, there were certain companies that were more favorable to the LGBT community that people would support more than others.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and of course. Well, in the 80s, let's face facts as well. The straight community in the UK and in America were educated by the gay community about HIV and AIDS because neither government wanted to admit that it was a problem or it was even there, or it even affected the straight community. So without the LGBT community or without the gay community at that time, a lot more straight people would have been infected by a disease they genuinely believed that they were immune to because their governments allowed them to believe that. We've been involved in a lot of things over the years that we haven't been credited for. Not that we do it for credit, but it would be nice, to be acknowledged in the role that we have been involved in. So it's a little bit pathetic, really, that's happened. And as you say, it's 2015. It's like, are we not moving further into the 21st century and not further away? But then, as your first story is telling us, maybe we're not. Maybe we are creeping back, which is a bit scary. And particularly after the Sony story, we're finding out that even top Hollywood actresses are still being treated poorly, and we're also apparently afraid of Pol Pot dictators who were complaining about being ridiculed. So why should we be any different? I suppose, but it's not on, folks. Get over it. As they used to say in the 80s, we're here, we're queer. Get used to it.
Are you queer?
Well, I've been told I'm a little unusual.
I think a lot of these things is that we've allowed so much crap for so long that it just becomes a laugh. It just becomes funny. And we become a laughing stock because America used to be one of the biggest forces in the world, and here they are bowing to a little fat bald Asian guy. I mean,
I know.
Kick
exactly,
his ass.
I know, but when they were saying it, well, it's because he has nuclear weapons, though, isn't it? They're crapping themselves. That's the problem. Because somebody asked me that over here and said, why did I? Because he has nuclear weapons and he points them at America and he's mental. He's mental. The man is nuts. he is balmy enough to push that button. That's why Obama's, and us as well. Again, I'm not putting it on you. We're going, oh no, he's nuts enough to push a button. Nobody knows what goes on in that country.
No, but you know
what?
I don't think anyone is brave enough to push that button because everybody else would follow suit. If Korea bombed America, America would send their nuclear weapons right over to him and several others.
It's not about brave, is it? It's not about brave. It's about mental, and that man is mental. Look at his hair. I mean, seriously, this is the scary thing about it all, isn't it? That the point is, it's how nuts do you have to be to push that button, and not consider the consequences. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we talked today about the lunacy of President Obama, and he's got the keys to those to be able to do that. I mean,
well, it takes more than him, doesn't it?
He probably wouldn't do that. He'd probably get keys made for all of the terrorists that are still in Guantanamo Bay.
But he, oh God, his name's gone out of my head. That's shocking. I need to start writing things down. I really am becoming a bit senile. But the president of North Korea probably is the only one with a key, whereas Obama it's not just him with keys. It takes far more than him to push the button. But the guy in North Korea probably is the only one sat there, with his thumb hovering over the button. Thank you.
Kim Jong-il. Did you see the Photoshop picture of him where they put Kim Kardashian's face onto his body? I thought it was quite funny.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is the thing for me. If you're a world leader and you're that ridiculous and you get so upset that you're threatening world war and you're kind of tapping into people's internet. I mean, it really is ridiculous. Let's face it. If I was to spend all of my time harassing those people that have wronged me, I would never get any freaking work done.
I'd never leave the house. But that, how scary is that though? This North Korea, this little island, I'm saying this little island, this one spot, in the world, managed to hack the internet there. So that's, I think, why they were scared as well. Is like, oh my God, right? This guy, they hacked Sony just because they didn't like this one movie. So maybe let's not mess with them, And but then they're saying no, release it, But James Franco, I've got a little bit of a crush on James Franco, though I have to say. But so what can I tell you? I'm very shallow.
Just as long as it's not Seth Rogen, we won't have you sectioned right now.
No, it's not Seth. He's a very funny man, though, but no, it's James. But I think that was the point, wasn't it? Suddenly Sony got hacked into. And then, but was that North Korea though? Really? I mean, was that guy saying, "I hacked them. I don't want this movie released"? And I mean, and if he doesn't pay attention to the world, how the hell did he know that movie was being released anyway?
He probably has all these internet searches going on for any mention of him. Any mention of him on the internet in any way, shape, or form, because it was publicized that that's what had gone on in the film. But wasn't there a Thunderbirds type thing? In the 90s or early 2000s or something, where they kind of like belittled him and poked fun at him, and he got upset about that too. I mean, get over yourself, dear.
Wasn't that the people that do the cartoon thing?
South Park.
South Park. Didn't they do that? But I tried to watch that.
Yeah,
I couldn't get 15 minutes into that. It was so racist. It just freaked me out completely. And I know they were doing it for the sake of it.
Yeah, it was very. The whole concept is very. I mean, a lot of the Jewish community were concerned about some of the content from the series because Kyle, the character Kyle in it was Jewish, and they really kind of went to town on Jews and said stuff about them killing Jesus, but it was supposed to be shocking. That's what they set out to do, and they think they achieved it.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the movie. I found the movie too much. It was just, I thought, no, I can't get into this because it's just, and I knew what they were doing, but it was just too much for me. I thought this as humor is too far for me, so I was about 15 minutes into the movie and I just stopped watching. I thought that's not making me laugh, so I just stopped watching it. But I have watched the cartoon, the TV show. But again, no, it's not for me either. And I get it, because the gay jokes, I have to say, made me laugh quite a lot. But it's not my kind of, again, not my kind of humor.
I love gay jokes, and I will, as long as they're not like too nasty, I will laugh at them. But isn't it funny? Gay people can laugh at gay jokes, but other sections of the community don't seem to find things so funny. You know what I mean? We have to be able to laugh at ourselves, don't we? I remember some straight guy came up to me once and said, "How do you know if a homosexual has burgled your apartment?" And I'm like, "Go on."
Oh, yeah,
and he
yeah.
said, "Well, your apartment's immaculately clean. The poodle's been reset, and there's a quiche in the oven," which I thought was hilarious at the time. But was I supposed to be offended by that? It really does. It takes a lot to kind of offend me. Certainly not gay jokes, and certainly not cartoons. I mean, look at some of the Photoshop things that were done about me a couple of years ago. They put this thing out that was Jabba the Hutt, and they turned it into an effigy of me, and I thought it was hilarious, because if you can't laugh at yourself, what's the point?
Well, I find, for me, the only gay jokes I know are quite visual, though, so there's no point doing them on the radio. But I'm not in a pornographic way, just visually. From my stage days, darling, 25 years in the business. Well, it's 30 now, but anyway. But
I want to go chef at the scabby little cafe in Soho. Ha ha.
I do enjoy a good gay joke. Yes, absolutely. I like gay humour, but I think a lot of gay humour is turned inward, isn't it? It's quite introspective.
Of course.
It's generally speaking. There's a fabulous. There's only 6-part sitcom here with Sir Ian McKellen and Sir Derek Jacobi called Twisted, and it was fabulous. It was about two old queens, but it was criticised here by critics saying, "Oh, this is ridiculous. It's so ancient, stereotypical." And I just reading the critic, and I thought, "You silly! That's the point. It's supposed to be stereotypical humour. It's about these two old queens living in Soho."
What about Round the Horn? I mean, I found Round the Horn extremely hilarious. Using Polari. Vada the only Cologne.
Yeah, I've got all 4 box set collector's editions of the box set digitally remastered on CD, darling, of Round the Horn. They were fabulous. Written by Barry Klein, Barry Tuck-Story, and people, yeah.
Kenneth Williams,
and Sandy and Julian and Sandy.
Julian and Sandy.
But they were that was very on the edge.
You keep them next to your shawl or not?
No, darling, they're on my bookshelf next to my tarot cards.
Well, listen, Ty, we're coming to the end of the show now. Tell people where they can find you on social media, and tell them a little bit about your company and what you're doing and what you can do for them.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter at Egar, capital T, capital P, capital E. You can find all my media connections at www.brokenflowersmultimedia.com, which is where you'll find all the information about what we do. If you're thinking about getting your book published or you want it published, we're there to help you. We will edit it for you. We will proofread it for you. We will copyright any work for you in the process of starting a record label. So if you're interested in sending any music there, or if there's anybody locally or internationally who wants to work with me as a musician as well, I'm looking for people to co-write with as well, because I want to expand my horizons. Let me know. But all the information's on brokenflowersmultimedia.com. But at the moment, we tend to be focusing on the publishing work. So if there's any budding novelists out there, let me and my partner know, Jennifer, who's the master craftsman when it comes to editing and proofing. So that's where you get all my information. Jennifer, aye. But that's where you get all my information. She doesn't sound like that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
No, she doesn't.
But that's where you get all our information. because we do quite a lot, and it would take me ages to tell you, and you would fall asleep, you would slip into coma through boredom if I tried to explain it all. But we are literary. We're a literary media company, basically.
Which is Tyhe speak for he hasn't memorized it all as yet.
No, it's Tyhe speak for we do a lot. Honestly, and I haven't memorized. I can't remember lyrics, and I write them, darling. So but brokenflowersmultimedia.com. Come to us, children, and we will help.
Absolutely, and you can. There are links on xandergibb.com to take you directly to Tyhe's site. Just click on his picture on the front page, and it will take you there. So thank you so much for joining us this week, Tyhe. Hope you come back and join us again very soon. And we hope you have a great week. And we will endeavor to encourage people to check out your website. So thanks for joining us today.
You too, honey. Take care. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye. That was the fabulous Tyhe Paul Egar. Make sure you check out his website, www.brokenflowersmultimedia.com. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Tyhe Paul Egar, capital T, capital P, capital E. And Tyhe will be back with us very soon. Thanks to everyone who has made today's show possible. Thanks to Tyhe for co-hosting. And thanks to you all for listening. If you missed my episode 9 of my TV talk show, Xandermonium, which was aired on Friday, you can check that out on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for listening this week. We will be back with you again next week, and I love you all. Bye-bye.